Hey guys, Greenbird here. Hope everyone is doing awesome. I'm going to do a quick video on some tool maintenance, talk to you a little bit about when we need to do it and why we need to do it. So if you're using copper, you probably started off with something that looks pretty shiny like this. Works really great for catching platforms, catching edges. Eventually it looks a little bit more like this, which is still okay because you can still catch those edges even though you've got some indents in there and you know, some deformity of the dome shape. You're still going to be able to catch the platforms that you want, but eventually you're going to get to something that looks a little bit like this, if you can see the difference. Let me bring it back up here. So we have this that is sort of beat up, and we have this which needs some care. And the reason is that once you get to this point, look at all the you know, the pitted jaggedness of that surface compared to this. This is still going to be able to grab the platform that you want. You're going to be able to isolate where you strike. This, if you hit the wrong spot, you're grabbing pretty much wherever this surface grabs, is grabbing the entire thing. So instead of being able to take off that platform, you know, that smile that you want to take off with this is going to take off, or it's not take off, but it's going to project force into everything that this rough edge touches. So basically what's going to happen is instead of getting nice clean flakes, you're going to break off pieces, you're going to get steps and hinges and all that stuff that we don't like. So that's what we're going to fix. Again, you start like this. This stage is still acceptable. It's got some pitting in there, but you can still grab the platform that you're looking for. But when you get to here, even if I hit up here to grab my platform, all this surface here is still going to eventually come down on the rock, and it's going to grip. It's going to want to take off what's there, and it's just not going to give you a nice clean flake. It's going to pull off more than on the edges than what you want. It's not going to drive through. So that's what we're going to fix with those. If you don't do it in time, you end up with this. See that crack right there? That went right through the copper. Underneath that copper is the lead. So this billet is, there's no way to repair that cap. I'm going to have to take this cap off, remove the lead, probably melt the lead into a new cap, and put a brand new cap on, because this is a beautiful handle that I got from Jim Conacher. And you know, the handles, they'll last forever, but these caps, they're going to need to be replaced if they get to this point. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. This I still think has some life in it. I think we can rework that, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. So now let's move on to the pressure flakers. And we're actually going to rework this tip, this bopper here too as well, because it can still be used, but you can see how it's so pitted that it's not going to really isolate that platform. Whatever that pitted part hits is going to try and remove stone. Now on the other side of that is the pressure flaker. And really all we need to do is sharpen that. That's not going to be a big deal at all. And this one we're going to do the same. We're going to sharpen that tip. Now this one's shrunk, so I'm going to show you how I extend that back up. I use friction fit, which is kind of unique. Not a lot of people use that, but you know, I like to use it. So let's start with the bopper. Pretty simple process. Just grab a hammer. I like to use a ball peen hammer. Just kind of, first of all, let's get our eye protection. And just try and flatten that down. It doesn't have to be like flat, but just try and smooth it out so that there's no jagged marks in that copper. Sometimes this will make the lead head pop loose. You might have to deal with that and re-glue it, but just trying to flatten that out. I like to hold as far up to the copper head as I can because that eliminates as much shot going through the handle. Just trying to pound out all those pits. And again, this is never going to look the same as when you started with it, so don't expect it to be a complete smooth surface, but as long as you can get rid of a majority of those pits so that you have a working edge that's going to grab, and the whole edge isn't going to grab, just whatever part of this bopper that you decide to connect with the stone, that's the only part that should be doing the work. Not, you shouldn't get any secondary action there, or secondary, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but and you can only do this so many times before eventually you're going to burn through the copper, or pound through the copper, and it's going to expose the lead. But the more often you do it, the less energy is going to be required to smooth everything out. And as you can see, I'm also going on the sides a little bit. Not exactly the sides, but like at an angle on the sides. That way you're not just pounding the copper completely thin, exposing the lead. It's like wrapping a beef Wellington. You want everything to be even, nothing to be exposed. You don't have to hit it with all of your force, just enough. Rotate it so everything's getting an even amount of pressure. Try to work on the dome a little bit. You don't want to get too elongated. Alright, and this bopper is back in action. You can see it's not perfect, but if I run it through my fingers, it might catch a tiny bit, but it's pretty smooth even though there's pits. There's nothing jagged, nothing happening there. I can control what part of the bopper connects with the stone so that I can drive a flake in the direction that I want. And it's not going to, you know, catch on the part of the stone that I don't want it to catch on and create, you know, force in a direction that I didn't intend to direct force. So a little bit of fine tuning. This bopper's back in action. I'm going to do the same thing with this bopper here. Now this one is not quite as bad as the other one. You can see that, but look at the tip of that. That has some serious wear and tear. So it's very difficult to control what part of the bopper is going to hit the stone. Well, not really what part of the bopper is going to hit the stone, but what part of the bopper that you don't want to hit the stone is also going to be included in that strike. So, especially when you're thinning, when you're kind of doing these downward strokes, now you're going to have anything that has any type of jagged edge to it. It's going to hit that stone, and it's going to alter the flake that you get. So I'm going to do the same thing. Trying to flatten it out. When I say flatten it out, I don't mean the top. I mean like flatten out all the surface. And like I said, sometimes these will let loose on you and you'll have to re-glue them, but that's just the way it is. Want to be paying close attention. It's not just smacking a hammer. You're doing it for a purpose. And oftentimes it's not about how hard you're smacking it to flatten it down. Sometimes you're better off using more strikes with less power, so that you're doing more of a flattening the surface and not kind of pounding it thin. You don't want to pound it thin. That's the, you know, that's the one part of this process that you want to be careful of, because if you pound it thin and then the lead's exposed, your bopper is useless after that until you fix it. And hear the BBs rattling in my, see my friction fit. I rattled it loose. That's right, because we're going to fix that too. Sometimes I'll go side to side, because you get a better angle than kind of coming down. You can see a little bit better. You can twist your angles. Especially towards the end of the process. some letter taps towards the end, you know, for obvious reasons. Just looking to kind of flatten out some of those surfaces that still might be a little bit jagged. And again, it's not going to be completely smooth, but you just want to get rid of that pitted edge and all the jagged things that are coming out, because that's just going to grab your stone in crazy ways that you don't want it to grab. And you'll think that you're doing something wrong and that you're not napping right. In reality, it's just the tool. So for me, I'm completely happy with that. That's a huge difference from what we started with. I've got those nice edges on the side of the bopper, on the top of the bopper, no burrs coming out, everything's smooth. I can really control what type of flake I'm going to take off. So now, let's go to the pressure flakers. So I have a friction fit system that I use, which means that I basically put the copper rods in here and then I shim them with either toothpicks or whatever wood you have on hand. The way I raise the tip is by putting BBs in there, and I'll show you that as well. But the first thing I'm going to do is grab my file. I'm going to run the tool against the file, never the file against the tool. That way, well, the reason I do this is because that way it doesn't release my friction fit. I mean, it's still going to probably make things loosen up a little bit, but if I was just to go this like this, I just pull it out, and you create a lot of friction and heat that way. So what I do is I'll lock this onto my leg, this file, any file will work, doesn't matter. And I'll run the tool towards it, and I rotate it a little bit, towards it again, rotate it more, rotate it more. Now, I want to get a tip on there, so I'm kind of focusing on the tip, but also I don't just want like a really sharp tip with a thick base. So what I'll do is I'll kind of put a little bit of the tip in there as well. Again, just rotating it. Now you can go faster, but the reason I go slow is because the more heat you create when you're filing this, the weaker it's going to make your copper, and the more you're going to have to sharpen it in the future. So you're better off just going slow. At least when you're doing major repairs like this. This should have been reworked a long time ago. The bugs found me. I'm just trying to bring my point back. Getting there. Oops. Be careful. Now at this point I might consider a little bit of sharpening. But again, I'm getting a lot of movement. So I'm going to keep the tool on the file. Now I'm going to lighten up a little bit. I'm not going to press as hard because I'm not trying to shape. Just trying to take a little bit off. And if you do this last step, this just taking a little bit off every time before you start your work, it'll pay dividends. You won't have to do some of the major sharpening that we started with here with this tool. I just let this go way too long. And I'm rotating this every time I take a forward stroke, just in case I didn't already say that or make it clear. All right. So you can see that's much sharper, and it got rid of all the pits that are in the pressure flaker, because the pressure flaker will get pits too. I think maybe just a little bit more. Alright, we're going to call that good. See, hopefully the camera can pick that up. You see how much sharper that is, how smooth it is. Now what we have to deal with is this. There's absolutely nothing holding that in there right now. Oop. That's fine. So this pressure flaker is still pretty long. Well, it could use a little bit of adjustment, but you see how small it is there? So what I do is I just drop these copperhead BBs in there. That pushes the shaft up. And that's a pretty decent pressure flaker. Now I could probably drop another one in there if I wanted to make it a little bit longer. Maybe I'll do that, just so I can kind of cheat the next time I excuse me, the next time I rework this tool. Let's see if it's too long. If it's too long, we'll take it out. If not, we'll leave it in. Oh yeah, that's not bad at all. I can deal with that. This one's actually pretty good. I think I've got a decent friction fit without even having to shim it. So I'll do my other pressure flaker here so you can see that one will definitely need some work. Look how small that one is. That one's way too small. And look how dull it is. So I'll sharpen that one up and I'll show you how I shim that. I might even have to make it longer before I even do that. Yeah, we should be fine. Let's just go for it. Same thing, just rotating, pushing and trying to sharpen. That way I have more of a tip to take flakes off of and not just kind of a, you know, the thicker and less pointed that tip is, you know, you can still take platforms with it, but you can't really do any type of detailed work. Sometimes you want more of the tip, sometimes you want to tilt it and get more of like an entire edge. I mean, you're shaping it, so there's not really much I can tell you about that. I mean, it's pretty intuitive. You're either trying to shape the entire barrel-shaped insert, or you're adjusting a little bit to the tip. Again, it's intuitive. And I'm going to leave this one a little bit rounder than I normally would, because this is going to be my pressure flaker for like reducing mass, not necessarily fine work. Plus, I don't want to heat this copper up any more than I have to. Once I got a nice tip in there, let's try and kind of round this off a little bit so it's not jagged. When I say round it off, I mean round off the insert itself. Okay, and this is starting to get a little hot, so I'm going to ease off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out. I think I forgot my... Yeah, there we go. So as you can see, this came right out. This is my insert. This is my pressure flaker. So as it stands right now, that copper rod can go in there. Super short, but I can fix that. Look at that. Just falls right out. So what do we do to fix that? First of all, I'm going to put these BBs back in. Here's one BB. See what that does. Still way too short. Let's put at least another BB in there. Probably two. I'm going to put two in. One, two. Oh yeah, there we go. This is probably at the end of its lifespan because it's so small, but can't do anything with that, can we? So now we're going to shim it. So what I do is I take any type of wood will work, but I just happen to have toothpicks when I started doing this technique, so I started doing toothpicks. So I'll start with cramming a toothpick in there. Let's put the file away, we don't need that. You can use anything really, but I'm just going to take the mallet that I have for my indirect percussion. Just a little bit, doesn't have to be crazy. Break it off about halfway. Move that other half to the side. I don't know if you can see that, but I took that toothpick that was in there, broke it in half. Now I'm going to shim that in this side here. Maybe I'll even take another one. So there's still a little bit of a gap over on this side. I can put another one in. Just looking for the gaps. I mean, there's not really much. This isn't rocket science. There's not like I'm teaching anything or anything like that. See another gap. I'm going to poke it in there on that side. All right. Now once I get to that point, so I've got my shims in there. I think I've got pretty much every spot that there's a little space to put it in. Now I'm going to take, sometimes I'll use my pad, my pressure pad. I have a wooden one in here somewhere, but I don't have that handy, so I'm just going to use the end of my mallet. I'm just going to press. Be careful when you're doing this because you can stab yourself if you're not careful. I'm trying to press it in there as much as it wants to go. There we go. See, I almost hurt myself. Gotta be careful. I always kind of wedge myself out a little bit, so if I do slip and go outside of my fingers, you should probably wear a glove when you do this. And you could probably put it this way on the ground and press down. That'd be a smart thing to do as well. But I want to make sure that the camera can pick this up. Alright, we're pretty good at this point. You can clean it up however you want. If you want to pick off the parts that are kind of broken off, you can do that. To me, it doesn't really matter. I don't go for aesthetics. I go for functionality. And there we go. This pressure flaker, this is not coming out no matter what I do to it. I mean, I could pull it out with some needle nose if I wanted to, but this thing will be perfect for anything I want it to do. So, let's see, where's the other things here? Seem to have misplaced them already, but we fixed this bopper head. It's pretty smooth. You can even pound it more if you want to, but I don't like to pound it too much because I don't want to thin it out. We fixed the pressure end of it. We fixed this pressure flaker. And we're ready to go back into action. I could probably sharpen this one just a little bit more. I don't like to do too much work to it after I've shimmed it because I don't want to pop it loose. But you know, in between points, if you want to just give it a quick run, it should be fine. I mean, that's what I like about these friction fits, is that if for some reason they do come loose, it's very, very easy to fix. Very easy. Alright guys, so anyway, I hope this helped explain how I maintain my tools, how you can maintain your tools, the purpose of maintaining them. Again, you know, this isn't perfect. It still looks like it's been banged up, but if you run your hands across it, super, super smooth, opposed to, you know, like if you run your hand against something like this that is just so jagged that every bit of that bopper is grabbing onto every bit of rock it possibly can. Nothing is sliding off. So I could probably rework this as well, but since I use this big one for larger pieces, it's not quite as critical, but I'll probably rework that one anyway. So if anybody has any questions about what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, or why I'm doing it, definitely post in the comments. I was never really interested in selling any of my stuff, but I'm going to have a video coming up here shortly where I am actually going to sell some of my stuff. So if you're interested, stay tuned. Edges and top. And just like that, this bopper is back in action.